Hey everyone, in this video we are going to do a deep dive into Cursor, the AI code editor. It claims to make you extraordinarily productive, and I don't even think it's an empty marketing statement. I think Cursor is the number one most important tool one can use when coding. We are going to take a look at its chat and learn to use its add commands to refer to individual files, folders, or to code snippets, how we can utilize the web search functionality. It also has ability to vectorize entire documentations or websites, which you can refer to with RAG, and it can also answer questions based on the entire code base. It comes with many models which you can choose from. It is a normal chat functionality, long context chat with GPT-4o 128K, Haiku, Sonnet, and Gemini 1.5 Flash with 500K context. It also has an interpreter mode, which can take actions on your behalf, such as creating files, stuff like that. It's really cool. We'll learn about ctrl+k commands, in which you can use the add commands as well. When you do ctrl+k, there's this super awesome definitions command, which we are going to learn about as well. You can also use ctrl+k in the terminal to actually let it write commands for you, such as creating conda environments, stuff like that. We're going to look at its other features, such as Copilot++ with cursor prediction, which predicts the next line you will move to after accepting a Copilot++ suggestion. We're going to look at actually code base indexing, and we're going to look at how we can embed and use docs. And also how to use the rules for AI with which you can give cursor specific instructions. We'll also look at .cursorrules file, which actually allows you to insert much larger context. I mean, because this input box is pretty small, you can use a .cursorrules file, which you can dynamically change the content of. It's just a file in your IDE, in your working directory. And we are also, so all of these tools are pretty much open-ended, and it gives you quite a lot of creativity. We're going to look at all its tools, a basic look, but we wanted a real deep dive on how to build entire projects with it. I highly recommend that you check out my 1000x Dev Masterclass, in which I've coded 11 projects using Cursor. Uh, I wrote minimal code myself. I wanted to utilize the full power of Cursor. So this, if you do decide to become a patron, for which the link will be in the description, I think this is a great course which will give you the ideas on which you can actually use Cursor to code much faster, with the hopes of becoming a 1000x developer when the new models are released, such as GPT-5 and the future model. So let's actually do this by trying to build something around X's search function, web search API. When you're building something like a new API, such as Xed, and you normally would have to go to the API documentation, copy code pieces and stuff like that, and try to figure it out either through the documentation or the API and SDK reference, which is fine. Actually, it's a great way to do it, but we're going to actually, utilize Cursor's superpowers, such as, for example, that we can embed its entire documentation. Here, as you can see, I already have vectorized the Streamlit docs and Next.js and some stuff that I was using, but I'm going to actually do an add symbol. I can also click here, mention, and I click on docs, and I click on add new docs, and all we have to do is actually go to the documentation and copy this link and paste it here. Just press enter, and we can also give it a name. It's just XAI is good enough, and now we just confirm it. And now it's going to go ahead and index the entire documentation for us. And once it indexes it, we can now refer to that documentation. Once it's done, we'll try to write some code pieces with it. Okay, the documentation has been vectorized. Now we can refer to the documentation by typing add docs and XII, and we are asking for an exa search function in Python using exa Python library. And as you can see, it's referring to main.py file, which is empty, and the XII docs. So it gave us this piece of code, and I know that there are a few mistakes in it, especially that it's not importing from the correct library. It has to be like this. And here we do need to initialize the client like this, just like that. So a few small minor changes, and then I believe this should work now. Let's change the query to latest AI news, and hopefully this should perform search and print the results for us. Okay, it says search response is not iterable. Let's just print the entire search result. Let's run this again. And here it is. So these are our search results. We haven't specified that we want to return the text, but as we can see now, we are being able to perform search. If we were to inside of this search method and make a comma and make a space, we can see all its different parameters. As you can see, you can actually input inclusive domains or exclude certain domains, start publish date. So let's take a look at another feature. So now we can select this whole thing and do Ctrl+K and then do an add and refer to the definitions. You can only refer to the definitions with a Ctrl+K command. When you do that, I would like to take a moment to talk about the benefits of becoming a patron. As some of you may know, in the last year and a half, I've spent 3,000 hours, over 300 projects as a patron. You will have access to all the code files so you can get inspiration and iterate quickly. Another benefit is that you'll have access to all my courses. And my most recent and most proud one, the 1000x MasterClass, teaching what I've learned on how to code fast and efficiently. Also the Streamlit course and the Fast API course. In my Patreon, I also have tiers in which you can connect with me one-on-one. Check those out as well. It actually retrieves the nearby definitions from all these classes and methods. And so this is very useful for actually, asking questions based on like creating arguments and stuff like that. For example, we can say search only for the last 7 days. We can say something like that. And as you can see now, I just went ahead and accepted it. It shows you all the changes that it has made. I can also accept the changes one by one or accept all of it like this. And as you can see now, it's using the start publish date and end publish date. So when we perform a search now, it should perform a search from within the last 7 days. As you can see, it is doing that. So the definitions is a really great way to actually get relevant information based on the new library that you're using, for example. Now let's create a new file, but when creating a new file, for example, I can actually use I can just create a new file normally by right-clicking and selecting new file, but I can actually come to the terminal and say create a new file called gpt_call.py, and it'll actually give me the command to do that, and I can run that command. And as you can see, it created GPT call.py. Let's go ahead and delete this. We can do this another way too by using the interpreter mode. I'm going to go ahead and create a new chat and switch to interpreter mode. For the interpreter mode to work correctly, I believe you need to install Jupyter Notebooks extension. But let's say the same query here. I can say, please create a GPT call.py file with a call to GPT-4o model using OpenAI Python library. I can run this and it's going to connect to a kernel to be able to execute commands, but I could have also run it with Control Enter and it would have auto-executed commands. But now it's actually going to ask me to confirm. When I confirm this, it created GPT call.py, and now it is actually going to write some content for it and then input it here. Of course, this usually when you ask GPT-4 a call to OpenAI, it's going to try to use the older library and stuff like that. But I just wanted to show you the interpreter can actually perform multiple actions on your behalf, such as creating files and populating it with code. But this is not what we wanted. It was to show you how the interpreter mode works anyway. But what we can do is now we can actually use @web to perform a web search, either here on the chat or using Control+K. Let's go ahead and do Control+K and write a prompt to actually try to get the correct API call with OpenAI library. Now here I'm writing write a function which makes a call to GPT-4o model using OpenAI library, and when you execute this, it performs some search and that returns a call for us, and we can accept it. And it did use the older version again, but we can actually perhaps try to fix it ourselves. It just needs to be chat dot completions, but let's see if actually the definitions can help us here. Again, let's do add and refer to definitions. Use the correct and latest chat completions endpoint. Let's see if this will actually fix it for us. Okay, it didn't. So it can, I mean, sometimes it's not going to work, but we know that it's going to be chat.completions. Let's accept it. And now this should actually make a call and then return a response. Okay, and it also, the dictionary style, and we know this has to be dot content. Let's fix that too. And when we run this, so all we have to do is just simple, small corrections. And now it's actually, we are making a call to GPT-4 model. And now if you set the O, and we are calling GPT-4 Omni. So now we have a working call to GPT-4. Now let's get back to our exa search. Let's rename this file to exa search. So when we perform search, we were only returning the URLs, but not the content. And actually, exa can return the contents as well. Let's select the entirety of our code and do ctrl+k again, and then refer to the documentation. Select XAI, and then say return the contents as well. And then see if this will be able to fix it for us. And yeah, I happen to know search in contents is the correct method for this. So now when we perform search, let's actually fix this by Control-K and referring to the definitions. Let's say limit to only two searches, let's say. And when we do that, it's actually correctly referring to the number of results too. So when we run this now, we should only get two results from the search, and along with the context as contents of the page as text, and from only the last 7 days. So let's try to actually combine these two to create kind of like a very simple research agent. For example, maybe we ask a question, then we retrieve some search results, and then give them to GPT and allow it to answer based on that context, like very simple, kind of like a web search RAG system. But before we do that, I'd like to talk about the .cursorrules file. So I'm going to create a file called .cursorrules, and to use this .cursorrules file, you do have to make sure that include .cursorrules file is turned on. Yeah, I believe it should be on by default, but double check that. You can go to your settings by clicking this gear icon at the top right. So you can actually give instructions here to the model. For example, I can say always respond with an emoji. And now if I go to chat and I say, hey, it should always include an emoji. Of course, we want to use it, such as by copying some content from a documentation or something like that. For example, at Access GitHub, there's all these, they list all the methods and stuff like that. I can actually paste this here. Say we are working on a project using exa search, and then I can pass in the some examples. So now next time when we are chatting, for example, it'll have that content because we have just given it because we have put it into the cursor rules file. So we could have also done this as well. So this is very handy, as you can see, because you can put here quite a lot of information. And for, yeah, so this is just something to keep in mind. I use this .cursor rules file all the time to specify some specifications or give it code examples, things like that, or instructions. So now actually what we can do is maybe we can create a .main.py file, and here either using Control-K or the chat, we can actually refer to these two files. I can refer to them by saying add and then clicking on files and selecting them, or I can actually start typing out the names and selecting. So now we're referring to exa search, and then we can refer to GPT calls. And I could have done it like this, or I can also right click on this and add it to the cursor chat. Let's actually create a new chat and add this file and then add this file as well. And then let's come back to main.py because whatever file is open in your IDE it automatically goes to the chat as context. Okay, now let's give it a nice prompt. So let's say take in user input for a search query, then get the results and pass it to GPT and instruct it to answer the user questions based on the provided search results only. So now that we have actually our code pieces ready, we can actually build our application. So it's writing it for us. So I can copy paste this here, right? But I can also apply it. So this apply button right here will automatically write it down. So if you're working with a different model that likes to return code snippets, sometimes like GPT-4 Turbo or Opus maybe, then you can actually, when you click on apply, it'll actually apply the code changes to those particular positions. Anyway, so this has been written. I can actually accept it. And this seems like it should work. And the prompt that we're going to pass to GPT is based on the following search results. Answer the user's question. So let's actually perform a search. Let's do make sure that we are only returning 2 results. Maybe let's return 3 results. And let's rerun the script again. And let's ask what is the latest NVIDIA stock price. So this is going to depend on if the search returns something useful. And here it's apparently we are not formatting the search results correctly, but we can just pass the entire search results like this instead of trying to loop over them. Yeah, let's just pass the entire search results just like that and run it again. Okay, it did want to revert back to the chat completions. This is just something that happens with Omni model, but it's an easy fix. Okay, so maybe we ask what is the latest NVIDIA stock price. It says the provided search results do not contain the latest NVIDIA stock price. So of course the web search is going to be a hit or miss. Let's increase the results to 10 and see if we can get an answer that way. And this time we were able to get an answer based on the provided search results. NVIDIA stock began trading at around $120. So as you can see now, we just built a quick web search agent with like GPT functionality, and we didn't really have to write much code ourselves at all. Now, whether in the chat or with ctrl+k, you can actually refer to the entire code base. For example, we can select it, and the code base is automatically indexed. If you go to the settings and actually go to features, you can see that code-based indexing is turned on. It has some settings here. You can actually resync the index, but it automatically does it for you anytime there's some meaningful changes. So we can refer to the entire code base and ask what is this code about, and it will perform actually drag on the entire code base and actually explain the code to us. So this is really useful, but actually there is a really inventive way of using it that I came up with. When so so we did want to use Excel, right? And let's say this was a new library that we are using and we didn't know much about it. And we did talk about how we need to go to the documentation or read it ourselves or copy the documentation link and vectorize it using cursor or copy paste some code pieces into that cursorrules file or perform web search to try to get the relevant code pieces that we would like. But normally speaking, when people are trying to get the AI models to actually learn a code base, you can either use the documentation or the API reference. And but I came up with a interesting way. When you are pip installing a package, you can actually pip install the package in your working directory by typing pip install exa_pi, and then you can say dash target equals /lib. Okay, this can be anything. I can just say exa here. And when I do this, I will actually download the entire exa library into our working directory, and you can see where I'm going with this. See, here is now the entire Excel library because I can now vectorize this and actually refer to the source for some code pieces, right? By referring to the entire code base. But before we do that, if you open this, you can see that there's quite a lot of separate libraries that Excel depends on, such as Colorama and stuff like that. We really don't need those. And we don't, and when you perform RAG over many files, it's going to become less effective. We can use it like this, but the exa library is right here. It's in this folder. So we can actually delete everything else and then everything before and after, just to make the task of retrieval augmented generation better. So now we have the entire exa right here in our code base, in our working directory. So we can go to the settings and make sure that our index is resynced. So I'm going to re-vectorize the entire code base. And when I do that, I can now, let's create a new test.py file. And now here, I can actually do ctrl+k and refer to the entire code base. Oh, okay. I suppose you cannot refer to the entire code base with ctrl+k command, but you can at the chat. I can refer to it here and then ask for something like, how can I get highlights from a search? Now it's going to perform retrieval augmented generation. So it's going to retrieve a bunch of files. It's going to re-rank those, and it actually used 32 files. And here, actually, apparently we can do it with highlights per URL. So we just refer to the entire Excel library to get an answer. As you can see, this is very powerful. So when you do this in normal chat, the amount of chunks that are retrieved is lesser than if you were to use long context chat. So if we try to ask the same question here, return highlights with search results, hopefully we will see that we are actually retrieving many more chunks because we are in the long context chat. And as you can see, we've set the highlights to true. So this is how it works. The long context chat is very useful if you wanted to have quite a lot of content be given to the model, because the normal chat is actually limited by its context. You can also refer to your old chats by clicking this icon and selecting your older chats. You can also open the chat as a window right here if you so wanted. So this is pretty much it. I believe I covered everything I wanted to. I think Cursor is an amazing tool. This is the only tool that I'm using lately. When I usually just start with GPT-4 Omni, and when the AI is struggling to write the code with complex tasks, then I switch to Cloud 3 Opus. With the Pro version of Cursor, you get 10 free uses of Opus a day. After that, you can switch to usage-based pricing, which is 10 cents per API call. Alternatively, you can actually insert your own API key for OpenAI or for Anthropic, and then just use your API key. So Cursor Pro costs $20 a month, but when you first download it, you get 2 weeks for free. But you can actually enter your API key and not pay for the Pro. But I believe when you use the API key, some of the features are not available. So just remember that. You can also turn on and off different models. You can actually add your own model as well, and you can actually change the base URL. So you are able to use open source models as well. So I hope you found it useful. I hope I was able to show you how powerful Cursor is. You can also pass in images. I forgot. You can by either clicking here, selecting an image, or you can actually copy paste an image here directly. For example, I can get a snippet of my folder files and folder structure, actually paste and give that as context. So this is actually really useful too. Helped me solve quite a few problems I ran into in the past. Thank you for watching, and like I said, if you enjoyed Cursor, do check out my 1000x Masterclass. So these are all live coding projects that I performed, building complete apps from scratch using Cursor and trying not to write a single line of code manually myself. So this is really useful, I believe. You'll find it helpful. The link to this will be available both in the description and in the pinned comment. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. I would like to take a moment to talk about the benefits of becoming a patron. As some of you may know, in the last year and a half, I've spent 3,000 hours, over 300 projects. As a patron, you will have access to all the code files so you can get inspiration and iterate quickly. Another benefit is that you'll have access to all my courses. And my most recent and most proud one, the 1000x MasterClass, teaching what I've learned on how to code fast and efficiently. Also the Streamlit course and the Fast API course. In my Patreon, I also have tiers in which you can connect with me one-on-one. Check those out as well.